Before you send out your book, you're going to have to get over your fear of people reading your book to help you improve it. Because if you go right for an agent, first of all, your book might not be the best it could have been. And also, if you've never had feedback before, you will be in for a rude awakening. And if you are rude in return, your agent might drop you, and then your publishing dreams might be dead on arrival, or at the very least, experience a setback that you could have avoided. So what types of feedback should you be getting? Who is the first person who should read it? A lot of people have this thing called a critique partner, and they are normally a fellow writer. And some argue that they should be in the same genre as you, and others argue that they should not be in the same genre as you. There are pros and cons to each. If they're in the same genre as you, they know, hey, you should have the two love interests meeting earlier on than you do. But if they are not in your genre, they might say that was actually really rushed, and I would have liked more time to get to know the characters individually. You might even have multiple critique partners so that you get both sides. Then you could have alpha readers. These are people who you may or may not be sending chapters to as you finish them, and they are the ones who are reading the roughest version or next to roughest version if you do take your critique partner's feedback and then revise and then send it to alpha readers. But you know that there are probably still a lot of problems in the story, and they're giving you feedback to make it better. Then you have beta readers. They are like alpha readers, but they read a even more polished version of your book. If your book has triggering content in it, you might have wanted to hire a sensitivity reader who should always be paid because they're doing emotional labor earlier on in the process. This might be after your critique partners have helped you with the general story, or it might even be before you get your critique partners, because you want your critique partners to be the first ones to help you start refining the story. But if you have a story that involves racism or cultural differences, and then you have a sensitivity reader say, this never would have been a problem in real life, even if it's fictional, then you might have had to change your entire story, and critique partner is critiquing something that isn't going to be there in the end is kind of a waste of everyone's time. So depending on what you believe would be the best place for a sensitivity reader, insert that into the earlier workflow that I mentioned. You might also want to have one towards the beginning and then another one towards the end. And the reason you don't get the same one is because you want a different perspective. Because not everyone's going to be triggered by the same stuff, but also no diverse group is a monolith. And again, fresh eyes really helps. You can't make your eyes 100% fresh on your manuscript at any time, but these breaks of other people having your manuscript to give it feedback is the best you can do. So you've gone through all the feedback you've gotten, and then you decide if you want to hire a proofreader or a developmental editor. Now, a lot of people can call themselves editors without having credentials, having been an English major, having been a creative writing major, having worked in publishing. So you're going to have to do that research, and you're also going to have to think about cost. You do get what you pay for. I once hired a very cheap editor for my debut novel and then found a ton of errors after, shelled out more money, got a better editor, and it turned out better. And then I ended up handing it over to my mom for proofreading. If you get a developmental editor, they will be more professional and you will pay for that. And then you can make more changes if you want, and you can go back to have more beta readers if you want. You can repeat all of these steps as many times as you want, but obviously the more times you repeat it, the more times you have to revise and the more time that takes. But hopefully the better your manuscript will be. So it depends on timelines. And if this is not your first book and you already have an agent or an editor who has you on deadline, you might not have enough time to do all these things. And if you have an editor at a publishing house, you should not be thinking about hiring a freelance editor yourself, because that's kind of pointless. But let's say you hire an editor before you want to submit it to your agent wish list. That is totally fine. You have to actually be willing to take in their feedback, but also know that you are the general and final arbiter of what changes happen to your manuscript. And then you submit your properly formatted manuscript to an agent who has asked for it. You do not send it without being asked for it, because that will land your email directly in the trash, often by an automatic filter or an assistant like I was. If you are self-publishing, instead of sending it to an agent, you are going to send it to a group of readers who are called advanced readers, and they get what is called an ARC. And at the time of filming this, about a week ago, there was some drama online because an author's personal assistant lambasted their ARC group, saying that negative reviews should have been withheld, and if there were issues, they should have told the author so they had time to fix it. Please note that by the time you are sending your book to ARC readers, or by the time your publisher is sending books to ARC readers, the general assumption is that any mistakes in the book are going to be in the final version. So if they find a plot hole, they will be reviewing it, and they have that right. You also do not have the right to tell them to suppress that review until a certain time after the launch, because that is against the FTC guidelines. Those are the different types of people who can give you feedback. You should utilize them as much as you can. Always respect their time and energy, because recognize that they are mostly doing this as free labor. These are people who are genuinely wanting your book to be a success, the same way that any eventual agent and editor and the rest of a publishing house will. But these can be early steps to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. Even when you eventually have an agent and a publisher, you don't want to make them do extra work that could have been done if you had had feedback earlier. Do yourself a favor, make your book the best it can be. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please like it, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos from us with writing and publishing advice. And then also leave a comment down below and let me know what your experience with these types of readers has been.